In this episode of Visor Up, I will explain why I draw parallels between riding a motorbike and leadership. Now, I know, people think that we ride for the adrenaline, to look cool, or perhaps the odd midlife crisis. Riding is not just a hobby. More than my passion or riding to relax, my book is actually based on science, which has proven that motorcycling regularly is good for the brain. It creates a state of mind essential for sharp leadership. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share why your brain needs the ride. And the good news for those of you who don't plan to jump on a motorbike is that there are other activities that give the same benefits. Hi, I'm Steve Uskatazzopardi. Welcome to another episode of Visor Up, the leadership podcast for managers, founders, execs, and those of you aspiring to leadership. With over 20 years' experience as a leader, I'm a mentor and guide for those who believe in leadership that puts people first. The podcast is called Visor Up because on a motorbike, when we stop to talk but we're still engaged, we just flip our visor up to communicate. And that's the point of this podcast. Genuine and unfiltered insights on leadership from me and selected guests. Visor Up, let's go. When driving a car, you are passive. You listen to the radio, you have a drink or a nibble, maybe you text, even though you know you shouldn't. Driving is a passive state, something that we do on autopilot. You tune out, basically. Your body is there, going through the motions, but your mind is very far away. On a motorbike, you're exposed. You feel the temperature change, you smell the rain before it hits you, you see the imperfections of the road ahead. You are intimately part of your surroundings, you are aware of everything around you. In a split second, you scan the road ahead to see what's coming. You hear a vehicle behind you revving its engine, and you see a patch of oil on the road just ahead. In milliseconds, your brain processes all of that, eliminates the noise, and you focus just on the current priority, getting around that patch of oil safely. If you lose focus on a car, what happens? You drift into the other lane. But if you lose focus on a bike, you fall, you hurt. These higher stakes, the risk of pain, force the brain into the now, to be completely present. This focus on the moment means that while riding, you just cannot think about work. All the clutter in your mind is forced to the side while you focus on riding the bike. And that in turn means that you get a break from all that mental noise. This has happened to me so many times, but one particular memory sticks out. Back in November, I was writing my book, but I got writer's block. Things were not making sense. I started to wonder why I was doing it. I stopped. I went for a long ride up through the beautiful green north of Luxembourg and completely forgot about the book. When I came back a couple of hours later, I was in such a good mood. I could focus again with clarity, and I had a really productive afternoon. So far you might think, okay, so Steve thinks that riding a motorbike helps him relax. Fantastic. It's more than that. Scientific research shows that this is an actual biological phenomenon. In 2021, a study by neuroscientists at UCLA, led by Dr. Don Vaughan, carried out studies in which they measured brain activity in car drivers versus motorcycle riders. Now, let me add a necessary caveat here. I am not a neuroscientist. I am a leader who looks for patterns. I started with this research of Vaughan, but I then kept digging to learn more, and what follows is a synthesis of that. Vaughan and his team found that while drivers slip into a passive autopilot mode that I mentioned earlier, motorbike riders enter a state called Relaxed Alertness. This is a biological sweet spot where the stress hormone cortisol drops, but sensory processing and focus increase. Which is great, but how does that connect to leadership? Leaders face a lot of pressure, and some events cause a high-stress mode where cortisol spikes. When this happens, it triggers our survival instinct. Our brain thinks that we are under threat, so our focus narrows and it is hijacked by the obstacles. This causes us to fixate on the problems, on whatever is causing the stress. That ensures that we remain in a high-stress mode, which keeps the cortisol high, which causes more stress. So you see, we get stuck in a cycle of high stress that drains us. The more we stress about it, the bigger the problem seems, and the less we are able to focus on a solution. The state of mind of relaxed alertness allows you to see the problem, but rather than let it cause you stress, you maintain your calm. And the elevated sensory processing permits you to understand the severity of the problem, but also to focus on the way out. So in the same way that the rider sees hazards on the road, but processes them and avoid them, the leader can see business challenges and tackle them effectively. Rather than get sucked into that stress cycle that is both frustrating and exhausting, they're able to execute. That's all great as theory, but how does it show up at work? Imagine a crisis hits your company. Your top staff member threatens to leave. When the threat appears, the leader's amygdala, their fear center, hijacks the system. Their body creates cortisol, stress increases, their vision tunnels. They obsess over the details, the person's specific wording, what they said or didn't say. Maybe they get angry or defensive. They end up biologically incapable of seeing the strategic solution because they are in survival mode. Now, a leader whose hobby triggers relaxed alertness regularly has trained their brain to handle such high-stress scenarios. As a result, they feel the same adrenaline spike, but their system recognizes it. Instead of panicking, their brain accesses a familiar neural pathway. So the brain says, oh, okay, I know how to handle the situation. High stakes, calm hands. They regulate the cortisol, keep their peripheral vision open, and see the solution. Now, at this point, if you do not ride, you must be asking yourself, so do I lose out on this relaxed alertness? Absolutely not. Relaxed alertness is triggered by two factors, focus and consequence. Focus means that your brain pushes aside all your thoughts because the activity demands your total, undivided attention. That level of focus is only achieved when your brain perceives a risk. Let's imagine a rock climber. She's hanging off a cliff face, with only 2 fingers keeping her up. Her brain is telling her, hold on, don't fall, find the next handhold. She has 0 space to think about her project deadline or that client who's complaining. So any activity that has those 2 elements of focus and risk can help you reach relaxed alertness. Some other activities that work are outdoor cycling, not surprisingly. This is the closest activity to motorbiking. Similarly, you need to watch your balance, look out for hazards in the road, maybe you're on a technical descent. You're looking out for obstacles, whether that is roads or pedestrians, cars. If you get it wrong, there's the risk of hurting. So the brain focuses. Surfing, snowboarding and skiing, similarly, you are trying to read the environment and adapt what you are doing to harness the opportunity of the moment, the slope, the wave. Obviously, the risk is that if you fall on the snow, you can hurt, and while surfing, you could get caught underwater. So the brain perceives a risk that it wants to avoid. There's also sparring in martial arts, so not just practicing moves, but facing an opponent who is trying to hit you. You need to be hyper aware of where your body is to avoid getting hurt. Now, if you do not or cannot engage in sporting activities, there are other situations that can also do the trick. Flying FPV drones at very high speeds, you obviously need to focus not to crash the drone, and your brain is fooled into thinking that you are flying, so it perceives the risk to be very high, although it's simulated. Social risk or humiliation is also a powerful trigger, so any situation where you would not want to make a mistake, so imagine a live performance, whether that is dance, playing music, stand-up comedy or improv, you don't want to make a mistake up on stage. If you're in a group scenario, in a band or an orchestra, you don't want to be the one to drop a note and ruin it for everyone. If you're doing comedy, you want to watch, you want to read the room, you don't want your joke to fall flat. This all heightens your level of focus and alertness level. Basically, the test for whether an activity helps you to reach relaxed alertness is that there is a level of risk and that it requires your total presence. So, for instance, running on a treadmill won't work because I know myself, I process millions of other thoughts while running. It's zoning out more than focusing. The question now is, how do you apply all of this science to your week at work? Well, you can trigger this state even if your body does not do it for you. The link is the biology. Your brain uses your body to determine the threat level. On the bike, when I feel my riding becoming stiff or jerky, I immediately check my hands. Usually, I will find that I'm gripping the handlebars too tightly. That is mental stress showing up in my hands. The rigid grip is dangerous because it triggers the cortisol, which triggers the stress, and we enter that loop I mentioned earlier, where stress causes more stress. And you likely do the same thing at work. When the pressure increases, you have physical signs of stress. Maybe you clench your jaw, you hunch your shoulders, grip your pen, throwing your phone across the room is a very clear sign of stress, for example. The physical tension is biologically forcing you into tunnel vision, so you lose your ability to think clearly. To regain the relaxed alertness, you need to break the loop. Be aware of your body, and when you recognize your physical signs of stress, do these 3 simple things. 1, physically drop your shoulders. Just relax them. 2, open your hands. Literally let go of the mouse, the pen, the phone in your hand. And 3, exhale for longer than you inhale. So take in a breath and then exhale a long one. I know these might sound silly, but they work. When you reduce the tension in your body, you signal to your brain that you are in control. You guide your brain out of threat mode and back into relaxed alertness. Just like my blog and book, I will always end episodes with a challenge for you. Look at your calendar. I'm sure you have meetings booked. Some are with clients, one-to-ones with your team. But where is your ride? If you don't already do something, find an activity so immersive that you cannot think about work. This will make you approach relaxed alertness. Thank you. See you on the next episode of Visor Up.